damn button. Just hitting the goddamn button. Anyway, hi everybody. Welcome to Ramblemancy.
Hello.
Starting the stream off a little spicy while I just get mad at technology. We are joined tonight by Allison. You know her from our Kids on Bikes Zombies game, Tomorrow is Dead, and also from previous Ramblemancies. But yeah, so tonight we're gonna be talking about something, presumably. Also, probably maybe nothing. I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We're just gonna vibe.
Yeah. Just a quick little thing at the top of the stream. There's been some weird like artifacting with my camera so far for I don't know what's happening or why. I even switched out to a different camera and it's still doing it. So like it's on and off. So if you see me glitching out on screen, listen, your guess is as good as mine. So
well, I have a theory at least, but I don't know if you want to. We have time to go over it, but
yeah,
if you give me a minute at least to give a synopsis, a short version of what the long version would be. This is the short version, by the way, not the long version. It's short, but perhaps, just maybe, there's an inkling of a possibility that you as well are a cryptid.
Oh shit!
And the camera is reacting.
Okay.
Your power is tech disruption.
That's maybe not a cryptid, but maybe like my being like a cosmic horror is starting to like manifest. You know,
that would explain all the times that it looks like you're like it does like the literal like horror movie cut where all of a sudden it just like.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Thank you, Freeman. We figured it out.
Got it.
Glad I could.
Also,
I'm glad that the cryptid could shed a little light.
Into the dark places in the world when I dwell. Anyway, hi everybody. Also, happy birthday, Anne. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us on your birthday.
Happy birthday to internet sensation Exo Girl Wonder.
Happy birthday.
Well, yeah, we're here. We're talking about some stuff. Hey, John, what are we talking about tonight?
Oh, how dare you! I was ready. I was driving to get some soju earlier after on my way home from the gym, and I was like, what am I gonna do when Lucas throws me under the bus tonight? And I was rehearsing it in my car. Mm-hmm. I forgot what I rehearsed, by the way. I have no idea what I said. But I do actually have kind of an idea of where I was gonna go with that. Yes. More or less, like everyone at this table plays tabletop RPGs. I know, shocker.
Oh, really? This is news. Wait, you guys like TTRPGs?
Wait, you do too?
Wait.
Oh my god, no way!
How come we've never played before?
Lucas,
oh my gosh.
You really have, we should do a when to meet. We should get a game going, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think about some Cyberpunk Red?
That sounds great.
I've got the book.
Ooh.
I'm on 3 cups of coffee. Sorry.
Okay, I'm on 2.
I'm also on 2.
I've had like 2 ounces of soju. I am as close to being sober as you can be without actually being sober.
Don't lie to me, John. That's definitely a bottle of Tabasco you're drinking out of.
It is.
Let me see it.
Mango.
Let me see it.
Yeah.
Mango flavored Tabasco.
You know, I think they have a mango flavored Tabasco, right?
I hate that.
I mean, I feel like they've had something mango flavored on hot ones before, so.
Probably.
Okay.
Mango is honestly like a pretty common ingredient in salsa. I feel like mango salsa is something I know I have heard of.
My favorite thing about this is how John tried to start us on a topic, and we are immediately off the rails. But the funniest part about that is that buses don't require rails to travel. So
it's true. No. Anyway, my original comment was something to the effect of like because I live in the part of like tabletop RPG Twitter that I do, which is full of game designers. There's like perpetual conversations about what constitutes play. And you know, like you have the purest definition.
That's a very game designer thing to talk about.
It is.
What is play?
It's funny because I'll see Ruby Lavin from Possum Creek sometimes tweet shit like layout design is playtesting. Damn it, Ruby. My favorite abstraction that I've seen of that. But yeah, no, like what is like the of course like the purest definition being like, ah, yes, I'm rolling dice or using some form of the game mechanics to resolve a question or a prompt or a puzzle that the game or the game master has like, you know, posed for me, the player, or for myself, the solo game. But a lot of different things bring a lot of people to tabletop RPGs, and we all enjoy very different things about them. And so, like, I guess, and I know for a fact that everybody at this table likes different pieces of the puzzle when it comes to tabletop RPGs. So I think, like, I think that's a fair place to start is, like, what's your favorite part of the play experience? You know, because I know Allison, like you love a lot of like the planning process, and you know, like I know that you love like writing out characters and like, you know, playing out character relationships, and like Lucas, I know also love NPCs, but like you've talked about it because you've been playing Pathfinder Kingmaker like lately. The like very meticulous nitty gritty, like, okay, let me weigh this feat versus that feat versus maybe just taking the increased stats here, like. And Freeman, like I know improving characters is super fun for you. Like, so I'm curious,
Yeah.
like what bit of play draws you to games? Chat, you can please feel free to answer this question too. I love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. When you can connect like the improv part and theater, when you can connect those two things, that is awesome. It is awesome to like kind of look at it that way a little bit if you want to. And I often, with my characters, take that so to the extreme of like, I don't really plan out my character in advance. I make the skeleton of the character as I've said in the past before, and then I kind of just go with the flow, I guess. Up until recently, I've been kind of like planning characters ahead a little bit more. But that's one answer. I might have another one in a bit, since that one's like, yeah.
I like feeling things. That's why I like playing games, because I like big emotions, and I don't like the anxiety of having that drama in my real life.
Fair.
I was
I don't know. I just like making decisions that impact story, and telling a story that is satisfying, whether or not it's a good ending for my character, is really cool to me. So
yeah.
And I suppose like it all just depends on what you define like a good ending as. If it's an ending that feels satisfying for that character, then like like it doesn't necessarily have to end in that character being alive. Sometimes your character dying in some way is the best end to their story. Not that anyone on here on screen would know anything about that.
No, nobody's ever done anything like that.
No one's ever done anything like that. No spoilers.
I don't know what you guys are talking about, so it's fine.
What? No.
Right?
You know, I don't know that I have one answer for this. I was recently in a conversation where I was talking to a friend of mine about how like I make jokes about being a forever GM, but the truth of the matter is that I think I am most comfortable behind the screen than I am as a player, cuz like and I think I maybe blame my ADHD for this a little bit, is that like one character is far too little to occupy my brain. It's not enough to occupy my brain, and so then I like can't, it's like in this weird sort of like counterintuitive way, because it's not enough to occupy my brain, I like cannot focus enough to like make a character and think about it and be really invested in the character, because it's just not enough for my brain to grab onto. And like, so I think if I was gonna like if I was gonna give you only one answer to this question, I really do think that the place where like play happens for me, the thing that really is just the big one for me, is when we're talking about like my brain lives in lore, in history of the world, in plot lines, in like figuring out the complex relationships between NPCs and PCs and like stuff like that. So that's kind of where like where the juice is for me, like it's in that. So yeah, but also I'm with Allison. I like big emotions. I like the big emotions. I played TTRPGs just to feel things. No.
Okay. Why do you think I make so many character playlists though? Because like I'm in the same boat as you. Like I like even when I am playing, because I'm like a 50-50 player versus GM. Like I do like
Mhm.
half and half in what I
Yeah.
do. And I think when I'm playing a character, that's why I make so many playlists and like Pinterest boards and all of that, because I need to invest that much in my character because I just need more to grab onto, and it makes me excited to like discover things about my character as I think more about them too. Or I
Mhm.
hear a song on the radio and I'm like, dang, that is this character that I relate to that because of this character and not because of me, and that's really interesting because I feel like I experienced it, but I didn't too.
Right.
And
Now,
I don't
now
Yeah.
I'm
know.
in my
Mhm.
like in my feelings
Yeah.
because I think that my character would react strongly to this song, or I associate this song strongly with a character that I've played or a character that I haven't played.
Right?
Um,
Listen, I do not know how many songs I've sent Lucas for my various characters in like just the last 2 years. So, um, and
Yeah.
playlists,
It's
like entire playlists.
Mhm.
It's bad.
there's
yeah,
quite a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
no, and like
I said that like
and
I was ashamed though, and I'm really not.
No, I didn't think you were. And you shouldn't be.
I'm actually really proud of it, and I pick specific lyrics from them, and that's why I make my
Mhm.
Google Docs of the playlists
Yeah.
too, because I'm like, this is exactly why I picked this song, and I want people to know it because I want them to feel the things that I'm
Yeah.
feeling
Mhm.
because I'm evil
Absolutely.
and also a GM. Can you tell? Um,
Yeah.
you're also like one of the like so incredibly organized as a GM, and it's very cool.
I don't know how. Remember
like
how the first time I was on this, all we talked about was like how I plan games?
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that game that I was planning, it started like 2 weeks later. It's been going for over a year now, so
Oh, that's awesome.
find
Nice.
people you like playing with, guys. It's worth
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
No,
My
like,
Oh no, go
oh,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I feel like you were in the middle of making like a greater point about that, and I was going somewhere completely different. So,
No, I was just saying, like, I was talking with a friend kind of about what we've been talking about here last night in Discord, actually. And they were like, yeah, my partner will sometimes like stick their head around the corner in the house and be like, you good? Because, like they'll get like a character scene in their head and be talking through it under their breath. Except of course it's
Mm.
big emotions.
hmm
And so just like walking around talking like through this very emotional scene for a character that's not you, and it's just like, oh yeah, no, I'm good. Like
Right?
hmm
It's
and
just
like
you're
I
writing the story in your head and you kind of have to feel it out because it's like
Yeah.
this makes a great point of where I want this character to go and something I want to do next time I play. I don't know, it's cool to like bookmark those things for yourself to come back to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. Like that abstracting yourself and this idea or this emotion that you had, and then like filtering it through the lens of this character and like kind of exploring it. It's on the one hand therapeutic, on the other hand fuel for the table, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So like
It's cool
its
to
own form of play, even not necessarily when you're sitting there rolling dice.
yeah. No, and like you can feel out stuff that even isn't something you necessarily want to happen in game. And you can just think about how your character would react to it, and that's also interesting development for like their own personality. Like, what if my character was in XYZ situation? Like, even as small as those memes of like what would your character Starbucks order be? Like,
Right.
you can
I
feel
love
out more aspects of their personality just by thinking of these specific scenarios and things. It's fun too with the scenes because then it's like writing fan fiction in your head, but you don't actually have to sit and write it.
hmm Yeah, no, that's why I like having character scenes in the shower. Um,
hmm
Or in the
Very
car.
cool. Car's good for it too.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw
Walking through the woods.
yes, exactly. Um, I saw Newly Human saying, "I really love game mechanics, and if I'm playing D&D, I'm gonna want lots of combat. Whatever the main mechanic of the game is, I want to play with it." That's. I feel like you have just said words that were in my soul somewhere, but I didn't know they were there. Like, 'cause- no, I agree with that. I think I'm very much the same way. Like, if if I am a player in a game, then I make my characters. I think I'm one of those. Maybe this is an unpopular thing to be these days. I don't know, but I think I'm a mechanics first person. I don't think I do character first. I think I'm mechanics first, which is hilarious if you've ever seen any of like to hear me say that and then to see like any of my NPCs that I've ever run anywhere. Like it's hilarious that then it's completely the opposite when it comes to my character. It's like I'm very much a mechanics first person because I don't know. I that's why my characters in games like D&D tend to be very like focused on combat and making combat oriented characters. Hell, even in Cypher my characters tend to be pretty like combat oriented, and that's not even a combat heavy game. So like yeah, because
it is one of the crunchiest parts of that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Listen, I have a lot of opinions these days that if a younger me heard me today saying them, younger me would be like, "What have we become?" Because like things like I like crunch. Okay, I love crunch. I like grimdark settings. Okay, I do like grimdark fantasy. Okay, when it's done well, not when it's done really like cringy and lazy. But anyway, I'm mechanics first over character. These are things that a younger me would have, if he'd heard me say these things, he'd have been like, God, I gotta do something else. I gotta fix my life. Be like a ghost of it, like be like a visit from the ghost of Christmas future.
No.
It's like
Ebenezer Santana.
I gotta get my life together.
I don't want to become that guy. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting to like as the resident game designer hearing it too, because like that is kind of your goal when you're on the design side of things. It's like I want players to engage with whatever core system I've designed here. I want my players to engage with repeatedly, and I want that to fulfill the fantasy of the average player who comes and picks up my game, right? And so designing your character from a mechanics first like kind of angle gives you
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at what Nico said. I'm so sorry, John. I'm just laughing. Lucas is turning into a Warhammer 40k player.
Can I get just a whole bunch of smorks
Jesus.
in the chat,
been
please?
Oh my god. I think maybe me now is like, what have I become? So after that statement, damn.
I think I lost the thread of what I was saying.
I'm
because
so
I'm fully
sorry.
distracted.
I'm so sorry. I was
I'm wheeling through like all of the lists of texts that you've sent me over the years too, like the giant battle maps that you designed, like when you did physical battle maps. I'm like, oh shit, he could do it. He could be a Warhammer 40k player.
That's why I DM. I like crafting.
Yeah.
thank you for making me realize I like planning things. I like crafting. I've always been an event planner. I like cooking for people. I'm very much a hostess, and this gives me the perfect social. Maybe.
I what do you mean, Allison? I couldn't possibly.
Anyways, I made him that cup.
Yes.
I wish mine was in arm's reach, but it's not, because I would then just say Allison made them for all of us.
The funny thing is, I still haven't finished my own. I made myself one too, so we would all match them, and I still haven't actually made it yet. Like,
I feel like that's classic GM like mood. Though.
I just need to put the like front logo on it because it has all the black stuff on it. It just Anyways, I'll make it eventually. I have a very pretty like bluey purpley holographic one that I was gonna use for like Vinna aesthetics. So
nice.
Yeah. No, I think Newly Human I think put that really well though. Like I think that's a good way to frame it is like liking to, if you're going to play a game, you want to be able to engage with the game's mechanics as long as you're engaging in like whatever fantasy or like whatever like role playing or play you are, which is to say like we all like a bit of direction in our play.
Yeah. Well, and that actually brings me to something I was going to say before is like I'm mechanics first when I make my characters, but like I always build the character out of the mechanics, right? But like I want the mechanics to play a role in what I'm making. And like I've definitely encountered, obviously being a GM so much, I encountered all kinds of different players, and lately the like as I've played with new and like newer people, new to me, not necessarily new to the game, but new to me, I've found a lot more people who they have to have an idea of their character before they can even put pen to paper. And me, like, that's just so completely alien to me. Like, if it works for you, great, go for it, run with that. But for me, like, I have to have an idea of my character mechanically before I even begin to think about like the character is.
Nope, I'm the opposite. We're the
I
same
know.
person most of the time, except for right now in this moment. We just completely split. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I make the stats fit the character. Like, I don't know. I will purposefully like pick my dump stat because of who I want the character to be and what makes sense for them. I most of the time don't even know what class I want to play immediately. Yes, I do normally gravitate towards either druid or something multi-class with rogue, but I like I most of the time my concepts are like two sentence concepts of I want to play a character who is this but this
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And then I feel it out from there. I didn't know who Vinna was gonna be. I just had this vague concept for her. Um, and it became a specific like class and a specific like and then that informed more of my character decisions once I figured out like what class I wanted to play and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
like explain in story different abilities and things like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to have the concept first.
Yeah, I don't operate that way. I try, and then I'm frustrated because I can't make the mechanics match the character that I have in mind. So I build it the other way instead.
Gotcha. Huh.
Mhm.
That's fair. No,
Yeah.
I have that same problem when I'm developing like game concepts because most of the games that I want to run, I don't have a set system that I want to run it in. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
very picky about system because of it. Like I know the vibe I want for the game, so I just like search through systems to find the one that kind of feels the best for it.
Yeah,
But I know what story I want to tell before
Hmm.
I pick what game I'm going to tell it with.
yeah. I also this is sort of unrelated to that, but I do want to go back to that because I have thoughts about that as well, like about game systems. But I wanted to, before we do that, I wanted to acknowledge what Matt said here in the chat, which was I used to make props for my in-person games. For Halloween one shot, I bought a fake severed arm and doctored it up with fake viscera and blood. It was a piece of evidence that
Oh,
jump-started the session. Um, and
that's
like
cool.
that's so cool, and I agree. I love that. Like there, Freeman, you remember like when in our home game, like with like Reggie's backstory arc, or not backstory arc, but the arc with his sister and all that, and
Absolutely.
like there was like his sister had gotten turned into a vampire, and as revenge for like something that the party had done earlier, and basically like uh he was left with a pretty nasty choice of like, you know, either you have to kill your sister or she has orders basically to, if she is set free, to go and like kill all of your family. So like basically you have to be directly responsible for your sister, or for directly responsible for your death of your sister, or indirectly responsible for the death of your whole family. And that was the choice that he had in front of him. But she did she told him this in a letter that she left behind. It I had actually like found like a nice handwriting font and had like typed it up and printed it out. And so like I handed it to the player that found it, and it made that moment so much more like visceral, even though
Yeah.
it wasn't like anything to do with specifically what was happening in the moment. It was just the letter itself explaining the situation, but it was so much more like, because it was like the character was telling them, not me, the DM, telling them, right? It was like the character was saying it because it was
Right.
in the
It
form of
takes
a
away that
letter.
in between level of like I'm in a game right now. We're just talking to each other. I'm sitting at a table because you're in that moment. You're actually holding the letter in your hands. It's
Yeah,
real. It's in front of you. You are the character in this moment. I
exactly.
love.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Mhm.
No, and it's nice. It's something I should think about more now that I'm like kind of back to playing with that group in person. I should think about doing more stuff like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
Oh shit!
not
Freeman's
not
like,
like
oh, actually, I'm busy on Thursday nights now.
not like the vampire thing. I mean physical props.
Dude, yeah,
Yes.
no, I made I'm still
Absolutely.
running
Yeah.
Wild Beyond the Witchlight and I made
Hmm.
like wanted posters for this like Lost Boy type character in the woods.
That's awesome.
Um and it was like they're supposed to roll a D8 to like determine which poster they find in game. I just had them all in front of me face down and I had them just pull a poster. That was because they all like offer different like rewards for capturing
Right,
this
right.
person. Right. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It was just more fun that like, oh, you find this, and then just to hand it to them.
Yeah, I know. Like when I was way back when I lived in Iowa City and still, and I was like, oh man, back when I was a teacher. Um, you can hit the command. Uh, someone can hit the command.
I'm sure they're already on it.
Um, I was running a game for some other teacher friends, and there were a few like dungeons that I ran them through where I had like burnt scraps of paper that they found, where like a minion of the big bad evil guy like threw the letter in the fire, but it landed in the corner, and so like half the message was burned away. And I had actually like taken like a nice chunky heavy piece of paper, written it on there in kind of like scrawled font, and then taken a lighter and burned half the paper away.
I
And just
love
singed
that.
the edges of
Mhm.
it. So that was
Very good.
that was one of my like DM flex moments was handing like a charred clue to my players when they found it. Also, the thing that I liked to do is because I didn't have money to like buy lots of minis. I had minis for each of the player characters, and then enemies were always pieces of candy, and so whatever you killed, you ate. You got to eat.
See, that's on the surface that seems like a really cool idea, but that also seems like a very, very pre-COVID world idea.
Yeah.
Because
Like
you're like people are touching the fucking minis
M&M or
and
whatever.
M&M or
Yeah.
whatever it is the whole time, and it's just
it was usually Starburst, so like individually
Okay,
wrapped
that's
little
fine.
that's
things.
better. That works.
Because
That works.
those
I
are
like that
almost
better.
always like the exact size of like one of the
That's
squares
true. It's
on
true.
those like on those
Huh,
dry erase
yeah.
grids.
And then
Perfect.
because they're wrapped, you could even put like a
Yeah.
letter in Sharpie if you needed it to be like a different.
Yeah.
Yeah, love small individually wrapped candies, or like little Hershey's Kisses
Mhm.
for the people who like chocolate. You know,
I
Yeah, yeah.
did
which
pre-COVID use M&Ms one time, but it was also because we were playing a system that doesn't have set like map mechanics for battles. But we just needed to visualize, so they all grabbed M&Ms out of the bowl and we just put it in front of us on the table.
Good. Good.
All right, I want to attack
It's
the red
Monster Movie,
M&M.
in
No,
case
that's
anyone
me.
cares.
Oh, that's very cool. Lemon, thank you so much for your
36 months?
That's so many months. Oh my gosh, Lemon. I'm sorry you
I'm
can't sleep, but I'm very glad you're here. Holy crap, that's so many months.
36 months.
36 months. It's almost 100.
That's incredible.
Nico.
That's 3
That's
years,
awesome.
isn't it? Did I math that correctly?
Yep, 12, 24, 36.
Damn.
Yeah.
3 years. It's still
Oh.
wild for me thinking about the fact
yeah.
that like people that it's possible for people to have been subscribed to us that long.
I was talking to one of my roommates this morning, and I was like, yeah, 2 years ago when I put on that dress at Halloween for like the Halloween stream over at Breeze, I was like, oh shit, that was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago. I was how old this year?
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like
Whoa,
thinking
yeah,
about
you're
how
right.
long ago
Huh.
things were. I
Yeah.
don't like that.
Oh man.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, Nico was talking about something that I was thinking about too when we were talking about character creation, but I said I love extrapolating a character from the mechanical build. Like I built a character for a one-shot last year that was an Ascendant Dragon Monk / Tempest Cleric multi-class. I based his backstory on his mechanics and the subclasses I picked. He was an acolyte of a warrior cult that worshipped an ancient blue dragon that had ascended to the local deity status. He was born and raised by the cult, and his entire life was fighting and training for fighting. And then he said he was talking about the ability, like the Ascendant Dragon Monk gets an ability later on that lets them fly for a short period of time. And I took that and went, how can I make this matter to him on a personal level? And then made him a custom lineage flightless bird, Aarakocra. So that's really cool. And like also that's kind of an approach that I enjoy to character creation these days, especially when it comes to like D&D characters and stuff. I like going like, I want to play a Phantom Rogue this time. What do I know about them? Next to nothing. And then I'll pick some like mechanics and things that I like along like a theme. Like, oh yeah, I kind of want like a dualisty character because I read Gideon the Ninth recently. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to play like a duelist style, like goth duelist style rogue. And then like just kind of built outwards from there. And I love finding new things out about characters while I play them and as I build them. And that's like kind of the approach I think that I take to character creation a lot of times when I'm making PCs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oh, hey, here's this interesting thing that I've discovered about my character. So, can I be your petite necromancer? This is Cora, Matt. I think I vaguely like wrote a necromancer buddy into her backstory, but I've never had anyone actually play that character. So
Hmm.
That's amazing.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
Uh,
Wait, my sibling has a halfling grave cleric they've never actually gotten to play because every campaign they've tried to put her in gets canceled. I'm just saying.
please come be the discount Harrowhark to my discount Gideon. Um,
Oh my gosh. I wanted to go back to what Allison was saying earlier about systems, because there is a really, and I think we've talked about it before, but I think it's always good to think about. I think more and more staunchly in the camp. There are several camps when it comes to like systems and what they can do. And I think more and more, like the more systems I play, the more I realize I'm very staunchly in the camp of you need the right system for the right game. You can't just make any system do whatever you want it to do, because
Mhm.
I mean you can try and maybe you will have fun with it, and there's a really good chance that's the case. There's also just as good a chance, if not a better chance, that you're going to end up frustrated that the game isn't doing what you want it to do, and that's always my experience. And maybe that's more a reflection on me and my ability to do certain things, but like, to be honest with you, I have grown to really appreciate a game that knows what it's trying to do and then does that thing really well, as opposed to a game that, not necessarily as opposed to a game that doesn't know what it's trying to do, but rather a game that is trying to be everything and ends up kind of doing nothing.
Right.
And so like, when you were talking before about like being picky about your game systems, like I felt that, because like that's, for me, there are certain things, like I love Cypher for a lot of reasons. I probably wouldn't run like a classic like high fantasy like D&D-esque game in Cypher, because it just wouldn't work. I mean,
Right.
it might, somebody might be able to make that work, but I feel like Cypher is a system that benefits from hybrid genres.
yeah,
And
it's
yeah,
it is fantastic for genre mashups.
yeah,
And I think it's really good for games with lots of mystery in them.
yeah,
Like Cypher's mechanics lend really well to non-combat challenges and to like because a lot of like their abilities obviously the focus on combat, but like a lot of Cypher's of things that characters can do are also focused on just like figuring stuff out and finding non-combat solutions to things.
yeah.
So I think Cypher's a great system for genre mashups and anything that's got like a good degree of like puzzles or like mystery for characters to figure out.
The other thing is, and this is something that I don't know that that we've talked about before, but when you're talking about like systems, my thought is there's like a game that is designed to do one specific thing, one specific type of game, whether it's genre or like sort of style of game, can be stretched to a point. It can be stretched like laterally, right? Like you can like, theoretically, not that I would do this because it seems like it would take a lot of work to do it, but theoretically you could take the system for Cyberpunk Red and apply it to like a post-apocalyptic game,
Mhm.
right? Because like
Yeah.
those are sort of very, those are genres that are kind of in the same group, I would say, like post-apocalypse and cyberpunk and
It's kind of
sci-fi.
like a survival atmospheric thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like theoretically, you could stretch those that way. Like what I'm doing with D&D for our next home game is doing like a steampunk kind of post-apocalyptic type game, but like it's post-apocalypse within the context of fantasy. So we're talking like, yeah, we're like it's fantasy post-apocalypse. So but we're talking steampunk, which is certainly its own genre, but it's one that exists within a similar realm of like fantasy. So like you can
Mhm.
stretch them to do those things. But if I wanted to, and people have done it, trust me, I know that there are all kinds of hacks for it. I get it, but I don't think that 5th edition lends itself well to like sci-fi. I don't think you can
Yeah.
do that. Okay, that's not true. I take that back. I think it can be done. My
I mean,
what I oh what sorry.
no, you're good. I just think about Star Wars 5e, but like
Yeah, that's
in
what
the
I was
same
thinking about too.
point,
That's what
like
that.
it's a
Well, yeah,
different
Star
system
Wars.
technically.
It's Star Wars. We can quibble about whether that's sci-fi or fantasy, but yes, I agree. But
Mhm.
I think I still will take it back. More, but a better example would be like doing. Again, I know it's been done. I just don't think 5e is a system that lends itself to it, and that's like Regency era, like kind of like court political sort of drama.
I'll say that the show that you're probably thinking of, Dimension 20's recent Court of Fey and
Hmm.
Flowers, Abria Iyengar stapled like 3 other game systems
Exactly, but that's
to
yes,
5e.
exactly because it needed to be done.
Yeah,
And
because
I
like
it
like
they
doing that
were.
when you have a concept that you're that obsessed with and you're like, this is the core of the game and I need this element in it. Why not just pick and choose stuff? It's your game, especially if it's a home
exactly
game. Like,
no
pull
e-
the rules that you think are interesting and apply them to make your game work.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
That
I can't
said,
remember.
I tend to be more when it comes to GMing. I look at things like that and I'm like, man, I'm already doing so much work just doing regular GM stuff, but to then also like Frankenstein a system together just to make this concept work in this system, I think it's often easier for me to go, let me just pick a different system. And like I don't know. But like
Fair.
if you're willing to do that work, then hell, do it. I don't know. Like I'm
Mhm.
not here to tell you how to run your games or which game to run.
Yeah, because it is interesting, like when you kind of break, having watched a Court of Fey and Flowers, like having watched it, like about 50-60% of the time, the players are using Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition mechanics to resolve issues. Like, oh yes, I want to track this person through the forest that I saw because they're escaping and they know something that I want to know. I'll make a perception check. Or like this person challenged me to a duel. Cool, this is just one-on-one 5e combat.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's all these like abstract relationship mechanics that I think were pulled. I can't remember the exact name of the game, but there is like a Regency
Yeah.
like simulator tabletop
Mhm.
RPG that they were using that had a really cool like epistolary phase. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so like the other like half of the game was the characters reciting these letters that they had written or that they wrote on the spot to send to others, and then like managing relationship points, and that's all stuff that's far outside the purview of 5e.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I love the game is good society and it's very fun. And I love that they wrote the letters or some of them like planned their letters for those phases in
Yeah.
advance for that game specifically. Because that was the only part of playing that game that stressed me out at all was like having to come up with what this letter I'm writing was on the spot for like somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so I like
Yeah.
the idea of having time to plan those things and like where you want to go story wise with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
But matching
particular,
stuff up is fun.
it is fun. However, I will also say, and this is again my experience, but I think it is a real danger that anybody could run into, which is that like what I have found is when I've tried to, with 5e in particular, when I have tried to like take other aspects from other games that I've played and sort of like staple them on to D&D, what ends up happening is a mess. Like
5e's
where it like doesn't quite do what I want it to do, and then as we play through it later on, we find a place where it becomes incompatible with something else that already exists in 5e, and those
Mhm.
things like sort of work against each other, and you're constantly going to be like fighting to get. It's like having a body reject like an organ that has been transplanted into it, right? It's
Mhm.
like it's you end up with complications that just every single time I've done it, I've ultimately just been like, you know what, this didn't work, and I just throw it out.
Yeah.
So like,
And
yeah,
I think that's just sort of a natural consequence of the fact that 5e is a really big system.
yeah,
It's got a lot of moving parts, and especially when you're talking about like smaller B&D kind of tabletop RPGs, they do tend to be a lot more focused.
mm-hmm.
And like you've said it, but I will also say it. I do love a game that tells me exactly what it is,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes my job both as somebody who wants to run the game and who wants to play in the game. Like it makes my buy-in a lot easier. Thirsty sword lesbians. Those are 3 words that are fantastic. I love them, and I know exactly what game I am playing when I sit down to play that. Right?
Yeah.
I do like it when game designers are like, this is the kind of game that you are playing, and sure, you can flex it a little bit, you can
A
flex
little
it a
bit.
little bit, but like understand that if you're coming to sit down and play my game, you're going to be playing this is the kind of game you'll be playing. And I think it's okay as like as somebody who's writing a game, or even as somebody who's running a game. It's like, this is the kind of game I'm playing.
Yeah. Newly Human just made a really excellent point, and I'm glad you brought this up, because this exact thing is one of my issues with trying to run certain things that 5e wasn't designed to do in 5e, and I'm glad you brought this up. 5e is great for power fantasies, and that's great, but not every genre is a power fantasy. Certain genres, cyberpunk, sometimes sci-fi, especially horror, are about lack of power, and I absolutely 100% feel that, because I have tried to run sort of like low fantasy games in 5e before, and it quickly gets out of hand. Like, you either got to put a level cap on that shit, or you just need to like play a different game, because like that's not what 5e is. 5e is about getting powerful, getting cool items, and those items making you more powerful, and like getting better at doing combat things, but you were never really particularly bad at those combat things to begin with, and you're just getting, it's like you start at you don't start at 0 in 5e, you start at 10, and then you go, your power just grows from there. Like, at no point are you just regular people in 5e, and I think that's a tough one. And I think Cypher suffers from the same problem, actually. Cypher kind of suffers from the same problem, at least in my experience playing it, is at no point, even at tier 1, is anybody like just a regular person. And so like doing games or genres that rely on the characters being just regular people, like I remember Caitlin saying this, like when we did Thunder and Blood, and we did like Cyberpunk Red, and Caitlin was like, it's so cool being able to play a character, like going from like Bina and like the other like powered characters in Cypher, going to Cyberpunk Red, where you look at it, and after you build your character, you look at it, you're like, oh wow, we're just regular people. We can and will die. Like, it's just
Yep, absolutely.
And like Cyberpunk Red says it, I believe, in the rule book, but also, yeah, you'll die. That game is combat is very fast and very lethal in that game.
The combat's fast because it's so lethal. Like it's fast paced because it's over quick, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
As happens when you shoot real humans with bullets.
As it turns out, yeah. So, yeah.
None of this like D&D abstracted pool of 600 effective hit points for the barbarian at level 15, you know, like.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, Newly Human, because that's an incredible point. That's exactly been my frustration with like trying to run other genres other than like high fantasy, like heroic fantasy, in using the 5e system. It's been exactly that, is that like at a certain point, like, and it happens so quickly. It's such a like built-in part of the game that power creep is almost impossible to notice when it's happening. You just notice when all of a sudden you're like, why isn't this more difficult for my players? Why aren't they scared anymore? And it's because of that. Like,
yeah,
and it happens
I
like
am
that.
Experiencing that right now in a game that I'm running, because like, you know, I planned this combat to be like kind of hard, but still like mostly just fun to do.
Yeah.
And they destroyed half the monsters very quickly.
Yeah.
We happened to have to cut off mid-battle, so if any of y'all are here, spoilers, but it's fine. Yeah, no, the second half of the battle is not going to be as easy now.
Just so you are aware.
Manage those resources.
Fun.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I think that is a really good point. Like 5e is definitely designed to make its players feel powerful, and I actually, my capstone project in undergrad actually was writing about this in D&D, is that D&D 5e is designed to make its players feel like fantasy heroes. And heroes are not just regular people, they are by definition more powerful, right? And so it does make 5e not a great choice and I think this is what a lot of people run into, and why I tend to have a problem with this kind of stuff, is putting your players in 5e in particular up in front of like this insurmountable foe, because like unless you, the GM, just decide that the foe lets them go, an ancient dragon will just squish a bunch of level 3 players.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so I like, I'm not a huge, as I've gotten farther into like being in tabletop RPGs, I become less and less a fan of the putting my low level players up against an absolutely like god level foe early on, and then letting them go, because I'm like, well, this is just kind of not, it might be interesting for me, like story wise and thematically, but it's mechanically it's not very fun for my players to just have the villain go like and render everything that they can do,
Yeah.
Mhm.
There,
pretty
you know what?
null and void.
I agree with you, but I also think that there is a way that it can be done, because I've done it, and I don't know if I did it because I knew what I was doing or if it just kind of was an accidental thing, but because this was still way back, like kind of earlier in, not earlier in general in TTRPG, my TTRPG run, but like earlier as far like in my current era of TTRPGs. It was back when in our home game when we were still playing Pathfinder. There was uh, a situation where like the player characters were traversing this like nearly impassable mountain range to get. They were on their way to like the that section of the campaign's BBEG, and in it they had to pass through this like this secluded mountain valley wherein I had decided that there was this. I don't know if any of you who are familiar with Pathfinder or folklore or whatever know what a Lenorm is, but a Lenorm is essentially a primordial dragon. Like it's the things that dragons used to be before they became what we know dragons to be. They are, if there are any around still, they are terrifyingly ancient, and powerful. And I put it there because I wanted the world to feel old, and I wanted the world to feel like there were parts of it that were still dangerous and vast and untamed, where ancient powers beyond their understanding still held sway. But that wasn't the point of them going there. They were just they were just passing through, and this thing just happened to try to make a snack out of them. And it was too long ago for me to remember exactly how it happened, but like it was too long ago for me to remember exactly how it happened, but possibly through my telegraphing, or possibly through just like the players just understanding, or like getting so into it that, like, how sometimes like you'll put up an encounter in front of your players and you like telegraph that it's super dangerous and deadly, but like really it's not, but the players just get it in their heads that like we can't win, and then they like run away. Like it could have been that kind of thing, or it could have been some combination therein. Maybe I did everything right, maybe it was a complete freak accident. The point is, they picked up pretty quickly that the point of the encounter was to leave, to get out and away as soon as possible, and that became such a memorable and epic encounter. Even though like it was this god-like entity that they were unsuspectingly thrown up against, it was not a feels bad moment. It was a moment that made the characters feel like this is a cool epic action sequence, because that wasn't the point of them going there. It was just a hazard along the way.
Yeah, and like I think the other half of like that point is, I don't think it can't be done. I think it has to be carefully done in a way that preserves your players' agency in the situation and allows them to continue playing the game. Like at least and continuing to like use their characters and feel like they have an impact on the situation. And like running from a terrifying like ancient primordial pseudo like pre-dragon creature, I think is a very fantasy experience. Like, oh god, this giant thing is going to eat me. On a smaller scale, like in the home game that I was running for a while, that encounter with the Rock, which you guys maybe could have killed if it had dived on you, but you instead we spent a session playing out the course of like 3 or 4.
That's a perfect example of where players get it into their head like, oh god, if we fight that thing we're gonna die, and then like we probably would have been fine, but us as players in the moment, we were like, no, we have to hide from this thing. And
I mean, and that's the smarter move too. Is like, okay, yeah, you could get into a combat with a giant fucking bird, and because this is a fantasy RPG, you'll probably win. But also the very normal, I think, reaction to that situation.
That was audible.
It's okay. I didn't need my knee. Didn't need it.
No, we're past 30. We don't have those anymore.
You're doing
They've
great.
crumbled to dust.
I'm not there yet. Okay, I got like 5 days. I don't know, somewhere in there.
Make good use of your knees while you have them.
Yeah, because the
Thanks.
moment you turn 30, your
Yeah.
knees are just gone. They just disappear.
Oh,
I'm
this
just kidding.
took
That's not.
this went places.
Avatar Aang shows up and goes, "Boom! I took your bending away," and then that's
Yeah.
it. That's it for your
Specifically,
good.
specifically
Cool.
your knees bending.
That's-
Uh,
That
Yes.
is a okay. Shit.
Okay, I do a lot of stairs at work. They're already starting to pop. It's not great.
This is also, I feel like I should say, coming from the person who goes bouldering 3 to 4 times.
yeah,
a
my
week,
knees are
so-
totally fine. I have other problems now. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
but yeah, no,
But-
like I think. Sorry, you were talking, John, about the rock and that encounter, and I completely interrupted you and also slammed my knee into the bottom of the table.
I hope your knee is okay.
It's fine.
No, I was just saying like that. I think that's another example of like doing it right, where like everybody like up above table is kind of on the same page about what the goal of this encounter is not necessarily like to use this part of the game, but to use this part of it instead.
Yeah.
This is a puzzle, not a fight, and
Yeah.
that kind of relating to what Nico said. Like my tip for doing that in D&D is don't make them roll for initiative, because then everyone says this is a combat, and combat I can win because I'm the hero.
It also, it's a very similar move, but a variation on that is go, this is a skill challenge, roll initiative.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's also a very similar move because you're still
You do that a lot.
Yes, I do. You're still making them like you're still calling for initiative, indicating that like this is a timed sequence sort of thing where like timing matters and makes a difference, but you're doing it in a way that like makes it clear this is not combat.
Oh,
Yeah,
God, I just
like-
got flashbacks to last night.
I maybe
And I-
made them do like several skill challenges alternating with combat. The skill challenges influencing how tough those combats would be. It's fine. Yeah.
It's cool.
Really cool.
Love it.
That's really
Love it.
cool.
Also, I do have to call back to what we were talking about games knowing what they are. Lemon Twist and Kobolds and Trenchcoats is obviously a very high fantasy game. It's in the title, and I'm going to read you the first line of the game. It's you are several kobolds in a trench coat. Your mission, mayhem. Those are the first 3 sentences, and 2 of them are 2 word and 1 word.
Good.
That game, I know that I wrote it, and I swear this isn't just me patting myself on the back. This game knows what it is.
It's so funny. No, it is very funny that Lemon brought that up because that is exactly the first thing that I thought of when we were talking about games that know what they are. Because like you were saying, I don't remember what it was you were saying, John, but you said something, and I was immediately like, "Oh, like kobolds and trench coats." Like first thing, so like Lemon and I were like on the same, like we were in the same
level.
place.
Yeah.
It was probably what me talking about how I like it when game designers just tell me what their game is.
Yeah.
Which is advice that I kind of got from Matthew Gravlin when I was working on one of my first games that I never finished. There are plenty of whips that I have that are probably just going to sit there forever. It's fine.
Yeah.
But he was like, you don't have to like, as a game writer, like you don't have to try and like cover all of the edge cases in your instructions. Make the game that tells people and tell people how to play it the way you expect it to be played, and then just assume that people come in on good faith, because there's nothing that you can do to make Jimmy Power Gamer from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons enjoy your weird little tarot game the way you want it to,
But
if he's
John-
determined not to.
But John, why doesn't your game have Thaco?
I'm leaving.
No.
Well, and there it is.
The funniest part about this is the other day John made a joke about Thaco, and I'm like, "Shut up, John! You don't even know what that is." And he's like, "You're right, I don't." Neither do I, because nobody has been able to explain it to me in a way that it makes sense, and I think that's just that is just the experience.
That's it. That's the
That
thing
is
is that
the
it
whole-
doesn't
yeah.
make sense. The thing is that you have to look it up every time.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
do appreciate Lemon chat right now.
Yep.
Although there is a clown in Witchlight who's a very grumpy carnival worker, and he's named Thaco.
That's incredible. I love that. I
Um,
love that.
He's like the angriest clown you've ever seen. Let me find him.
Okay.
Keep talking. It's fine. Apparently,
No,
it's gonna
like,
take me a minute.
Lemon, I literally know what it is and what it means, but oh my god, that's incredible.
That's him. Just so you know.
Yeah. I
Oh
just
my god.
I just
Huh.
while I know what it stands for, I just don't know what it is in context of the game mechanic. Don't explain it to me. I don't want to know.
It
I'm
has been
trying
explained
to-
to me at least 5
That's
times.
the thing. That's why I said don't explain it to me, because like I feel like
Huh.
many people have tried to explain it to me, and every single time I'm like, nope, it didn't get
Still
in there.
no.
It didn't
Still no.
happen.
Nothing.
Okay. Here I have a thing that I wanted to bring up. So there's a hot take Tuesday. I know it's Friday. Shut up. Anyway, so
Rolls off the tongue.
Like a news reporter.
no. Now I have a question for all of you and also for chat, and it's maybe one that we've covered before, but I also for the I think all of us some kind of come into fall somewhere in the middle of this, but for the sake of this particular question, I will not be accepting a little bit of both as an answer. So,
Okay.
all right,
Fair.
here we go. Rules light or crunch?
Can you use it in a sentence?
Okay, it's to hit armor class. No.
Taco or GURPS?
Ugh.
Crunch. All right, we have a lot of people who are very here for crunch, and
Okay.
I'm not surprised by that. I expected Newly Human and Japan would both to be on the crunch side of things.
Me too. I'm on the crunch
Believe
side.
that.
I'm on crunch. I'm on team crunch. Crunchitize me,
What is-
Captain. Don't pretend I didn't say that.
I was about
to make-
I didn't say that.
No. I mean, I'm here for it, and I love that sentence, but no, I'm gonna say no because, no.
I was about to make a Captain Crunch joke if you didn't. So
Good.
It was a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Snap, crackle. No. Okay.
Good.
You okay?
I'm fine. Breathing is optional.
Oh, breathing.
I think
No,
Really?
you said like, oh, don't be a little bit of both, and like obviously everybody does want a little bit of both. But I'm gonna go to the other side. I'm gonna say if I have to pick one over the other, if it has to be either super crunchy and heavy and mechanic focused, or if it's gonna be something that I can bend into whatever shape I need it to be, I'm gonna go for the bendy one. I'm gonna go for the Play-Doh. Because I want to be able to. I don't know. I'm story first at all times is what it is. I love some good mechanics. I love feeling like a badass and rolling a bunch of dice. But like, if I had to pick one over the other, I'm picking story. So
Cool.
I think I had to think about it for a good minute, and I think that I am on the side of crunch, because at least personally, I don't have an issue learning a new system necessarily. I can do it, and I can also ignore whatever I want. But I do have that kind of like support of whatever levels of crunch there are there. I think, and I do think crunch gets a bad rap. Crunch gets a bad rap. I think crunch can look like a lot of different things. As long as it's focused and not like bloated crunch,
Yeah.
I'm very here for it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Freeman, thoughts?
Absolutely. I was gonna say, like, if you'd asked me this question like years ago when we started playing together, I would have said like I really like to bend things and like have a little less of the crunch. But that was, and I think because I was learning the system. But there's some part of my brain that just loves a challenge. And I kind of like it can be a little bit freaky, but I love that, and like that slight bit of fear of having to just have like all these things for my character that are just complicated.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like that's a really good point. I didn't think about that, Freeman, because now as you were talking, I'm like, there have been so many tense, dramatic moments where somebody's like, they roll the die and they're like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna be high enough, and they're like, okay, and then they're adding up all their little noodly modifiers and things like that. Like, oh god, is it gonna be? And then they like add it up and they're like, is that enough? And like that's so tense and dramatic in a way that I think you just can't get out of like a rules light system.
Mm-hmm.
It gets you slow-mo in real life.
It
for a
does.
minute.
It really does. Yeah.
True.
And Nico, of course, who mentioned that they were on the side of crunch, said I'm here for two things: to role play and to play a game. And like for Nico, you know, like rules light systems don't give enough of that feeling of playing the game. And Lemon also said, like, together, these are two interesting things that I think I see here. But Lemon also said, for me, the big advantage of rules light is getting to play much faster. And I think it depends on what your goal is. If I'm gonna run like 5 or 6 sessions of a game, or I want to run like a game for like a year or a half or whatever, then something regular, then like I don't mind crunch, because that will give something that's really suitable, I think, for multi-session play. It can give a sense of like that crunch can give a sense of progression. It can give you lots of different options to make play feel different and varied in each session that you play, figuring out how, like, ooh, if I combine my character's ability to binge, this is a thing that I'm in a game that I'm playing on Wednesday nights, Scum and Villainy. If my character indulges in their vice, they can choose to indulge in it with another character, and then both of them get to roll to reduce their stress. And they can choose to then both people can also choose to gain an advantage when they do that, to make the roll more likely to succeed. And like little bits of noodly things like that are good for long-term play. But if you want to just like pick up and play a game tonight, because half your party, like half your D&D crew is missing tonight, but you still want to play something, grabbing like a one sheet that's rules light is like perfect for that kind of play, where you're like, I only want to play like 1 or 2 sessions, there's not a lot of advancement necessary. Or if you have an idea that's like really kind of noodly and airy and you don't really need much to like ground it, I think that's where rules light really shines, as a kind of pick up and play.
I saw Newly Human said something. Newly Human and I are, I think, very similar when it comes to gaming, because Newly Human said, I actually can't play rules light systems, just because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I think it's a little different for me. Like, I think for me, I like having a framework, and I like the limitations of a system, because I like to know what I have at hand, and I tend to be a more creative thinker when I have like very specific guidelines to work in, as opposed to just being told here's a blank canvas. I also, as John mentioned at the top of the stream, weirdly, and I do not know where this came from, but I just love stacking. Like in Pathfinder, one of my favorite things is favorite and least favorite. So I'm just going to put that little caveat in here. But for the purposes of this conversation, one of my favorite things in Pathfinder is like the puzzle inherent in, okay, so I have a sacred bonus to I have a +1 sacred bonus to my armor class, but I can stack that with a +3 natural armor bonus. But this ring gives me a deflection bonus, and those all stack. But I can't use these bracers because they give me an armor bonus, and I already get that from the armor that I'm wearing. And I don't know why. I know it's insane, but I love that. I love it so much. So
No, that's fair. I think the reason I like more rules light systems is just because lately I've been GMing for a lot of newer players, a lot of people who haven't played as many things, and I also want to give them the freedom and like of being able to just say what they want to do, because they're still learning how to be at a table and how to play these games. So just giving them the freedom of saying what they want to do, and me being able to name what role they need to make, is just easier for me as a GM. I don't know. I like gently shepherding,
If you're playing like stuff like dice pool systems and things like that too, like that can be really like those kind of like easier like rules light systems are handy, because it's really nice, instead of going like, okay, we'll make this and then add this and make sure you remember to add this floating modifier to, looking at you, proficiency bonus in 5e. Like you can just be like, yeah, roll an extra d6, and like that's as much as you need. And so like that is an advantage, I think, to rules light systems.
Yeah. Because, I mean, even running 5e is crunchy if somebody's never really played any tabletop games before.
Yeah.
It's a lot of mechanics for them to learn, and you can tell them, oh, you have a +5 to hit, but they don't understand where that's coming from,
Right.
So,
well, and I think, so I've heard a lot of different uh, I've heard very similar arguments for rules light systems as being like good entry systems, and I think that's I agree with it to a point, and I disagree with it as well because lots of people's first game is D&D, and that's not a
Mhm.
simple or rules light system. However, I think what you just said, Allison, makes the way that you put it, it's sort of like a rules light is a good intro, not for TTRPGs in general, TTRPGs, but like for role playing,
Mhm.
learning how to engage with a role playing game, not necessarily how to
Exactly.
learn role playing games, but how to learn. It teaches
How to
newer
be
players.
your character at the table.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Yes, exactly. It's like it is you're just sort of immediately breaking people of the idea that this is a board game with rules and like specific moves and things like that that you can do. You're basically telling them this is a world that exists in our imaginations, but it's no less real than the real world. You can do pretty much all the things that you can do in the real world in it and a whole lot of other stuff, you know? And I think
mhm.
that's so it's like I don't agree with that take from the perspective of like, oh, rules light is easier, but and therefore a better entry game. And I'm like, well, I, you know. But another thought that occurred to me is that it is you can bring anybody into TTRPGs with any system technically, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think with somebody who's not committed to getting into TTRPGs, starting them off with something like Pathfinder is 1E is not the way to go because if they're not already committed to like learning TTRPGs, then that's going to be probably a turnoff. Like the complexity of it and how robustly it's
Mhm.
is designed is going to be a turnoff. So like I don't know. I like it's one of those things where like it really I think it just depends on the person, you know.
Mhm.
Well, and I think it's interesting that what we value, like crunch or more like rules light, parallels with how we build our characters
Mhm.
when we were
Mhm.
talking about that, whether we build them based on the concept or the mechanics.
Yeah.
It's just what do you value in your gaming experience?
Mhm.
What are you here for? Are you here to roll dice or are you here to play a character? Because like
Right.
yes, you can be both, and most of us are a mix of both, but at the end of the day,
Mhm.
you're more on one side of the spectrum or the other. Nobody's truly like in the
It's
center of
kind of
that one.
it's kind of a slider, right? You know,
Yeah.
where on this
Yeah.
do I fall? Am I here more for like the improv and like the hanging out and doing this thing with my friends, or am I here more for like the kind of gamified experience? And everybody
Mhm.
comes to the table, even at different games, it can be the same person, like looking for a different thing out of it. So
Yeah.
That's why I really want to run a game sometime that like jumps systems and like have that be part of the game. Like the whole concept is you're building the same character in all of these different systems. So who
Mhm.
are they when these are the rules? I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it'd be really fun.
Well, it's interesting
Especially if you
cuz
tie
like
in some like dimension jumping stuff, like
yeah,
give it everything
absolutely.
ever all at once, but jumping systems.
That would be super fun. Um, yeah, Matt, there was a Foreververse on Geek and Sundry. Yeah,
Um,
they did
yeah.
that, and I never watched it, but like I know a lot of people were huge fans of Foreververse because it was like it was such a fascinating concept of changing game systems, and um, I was thinking about this because there were lots of questions about like where the tip over point is, like discussions about where the tip over point is and like rules light and crunch. I don't think those things are necessarily. So there's the third term that's in here. I think that doesn't sort of fall on that dichotomy exactly because there's also like I think complexity is a part of it too because
mhm.
I was
I
gonna say
think
umami, but yeah.
Thank you.
yes, exactly. It,
Thank
so
you.
no, because like Cyberpunk Red is a game that I would describe as very crunchy, but not particularly complex. Like it's not a particularly complex or complicated system. Like it's relatively simple. It's just there's a lot of crunch. There's a lot of different moving pieces, but it's not that hard to like to play it because the basic game mechanic pretty much comes down to roll a d10 and add a couple different numbers to it, and like that's it. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole game. Um,
Yep. There's a lot of like other noodly moving bits to it, but that kind of is. it, and like
Yeah.
that's a very crunchy game. Like obviously something like Lasers and Feelings falls far on the side of pretty rules light. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, there's the mechanics in that game are when you need to resolve a roll, like when you need to resolve an uncertain situation, you call for a roll. That roll is always a d6. You are trying to roll either above or below a number. You chose got one mechanic so far. You chose some words to describe your character. Those give you +1 die. Um, you can sometimes help another character and give them +1 die.
Yeah. I
That's the
think
whole game.
it is a good point though. Like, I'm listen. I know that this is going to become a meme on this channel. It's just watch Lucas become a Warhammer 40k player in real time. But like going back to the beginning of what we were talking about with like you mentioned parallels between the way we make characters, but I think it's also parallels in terms of the way that like what we talked about first, which was John's question about what like is the part of play that gets like that really kind of gets us going, right? And when I said it, I said like, look, I'm a GM, and that's my comfort zone because one character, like being confined to one character, is like not enough to keep me engaged. I need to have a bunch of other things, which is I think the same is true in systems. Like there's got to be a lot of moving parts. There's got to be lots of different parts, um, and because otherwise I don't know how to engage with the game. Because to me, I can't. I can suspend my disbelief a lot, quite for quite a few things. But when doing one action is in no that is drastically different than a different action, but they use exactly the same mechanic with nothing disguising them, I cannot suspend my disbelief beyond that, and it just feels like I'm doing nothing. It doesn't feel like I've done anything because I'm just like, oh, roll a d6 to determine whether like I don't know. It feels if a mechanic in a game for one thing feels exactly the same, like I'm doing exactly the same thing for uh, another action that is wildly different than the one that I'm attempting, then I start to feel like, okay, well this doesn't feel like I'm doing anything. It just feels like I don't know. I don't know if that I was sort of trying to work that out in real time, and I'm not sure I managed it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Like if the resolution for every single like situation in the game boils down to the same die, like the same like one or two mechanics using the same die, then it
Mm-hmm.
feels very samey. It doesn't feel like there's much
Right.
difference between things. And if things kind of if there's no like other things that happen when you roll that die,
Right.
then like it starts to
And
feel
like
very
and that difference can even be because I realize this is very similar to how I just described Cyberpunk, but like at least with Cyberpunk there's all kinds of there's different stats and like abilities that factor into what you're doing. So like yes, you are just rolling a d10 and adding a couple numbers, but where those numbers come from are different. And that's the part of it that for me feels like okay, there is some like I obviously like I don't like simulationist games, but I like games that preserve a certain amount of verisimilitude, and it is very hard to preserve verisimilitude for me on a game side of it, if you're just using the same mechanic for every action in the game, and that feels it's hard for me to suspend my disbelief at that point, and then I just feel like I don't know what to do.
yeah. I know there are a lot of people who are very in love with Powered by the Apocalypse systems, but I struggle so much with them because they fall on the wrong side of this equation for me, where like some pieces of them are like feel like they're supposed to be super crunchy, where you're like, oh yeah, like I can try and apply this to certain situations, but they wind up being too specific. So I either like I just like can't ever use them outside very, very specific cases.
Huh. Yeah.
And then like there's I own like the it's always 2d6 to resolve every single situation. And so PBTA games also always just feel like the wrong combination of like noodly, but also maybe crunchy for me.
No, I get that. And I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, D&D is the same thing. It's a D20 and you add your modifier. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's no difference to me whether I'm making a perception check or an athletics check. I'm still just rolling the same die. So, like, it could be said of any system if you reduce it down to what your actions are and what you do to resolve it. But
No,
most
absolutely.
games
But
have that one core mechanic, you know?
no, absolutely, and
Yeah.
you're in that's why I differentiated for me like that it actually does matter if like the numbers that you're adding to the d20 come from different places. You know what I mean? Like
Got it. Okay.
that's why that makes a difference for me because if like the and I wasn't even thinking about Powered by the Apocalypse. I was thinking about more things like lasers and feelings because you've got two stats and one of those two stats will apply to absolutely any action in the game. Like you are where your options for what you can do in the game are not any less or more than they would be with like D&D, for example. However, the options of mechanics that you have at your disposal are significantly less in lasers and feelings, and so then it becomes harder for me to suspend my disbelief about like the mechanics because I'm just using the same option over and over again to do wildly and drastically different things.
Yeah, like you're confronted with a problem in D&D, and you're like, I could use a spell to solve this. I could use an athletics check. I could use an acrobatics check, and like now you're kind of like engaging with different pieces of the system. And so
Basically,
it feels like
what
a
I'm saying is I just want there to be more steps in between me and what I'm trying to do.
No, I get that. I think that's why I made spellcasters. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's why I like having spells, is it gives me those other options of things to
Yeah.
do at the table.
Mhm.
I
Listen,
don't know.
I want
I
TTRPGs to
want
come
to
into my
play a
life and
fighter
complicate it.
someday.
That's what I want. I want.
Yeah. I cannot fathom having my turn prepared the second my previous turn is over because I know exactly I'm gonna hit something. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
That's
No, I
why
take the
you play Eldritch
entire
Knight.
round to plan my next like move because I'm like, okay, well this person
Mhm.
is here, so I can't do that area of affecting. So I'm gonna run over here and then do this, and then I'm gonna like bonus action misty step away. Like,
That's why
yeah.
you play
Yeah.
Eldritch Knight if you're playing a fighter.
Mhm.
Well, yeah. That how many of those have you played?
Like 3 maybe. I don't know.
See, I can't let myself do that though. I can't. I know this is slightly off topic. I can't let myself main a specific subclass because if I'm gonna do the same class again, I'm at least gonna try a different flavor of it.
Mhm.
That's
You
fair.
know?
That's fair. And in fairness, I have played other types of fighter as well. I have
Oh
in
yeah, that's fine.
I have in fact played the giant one, Rune Knight, that one.
Oh my god, I loved your Rune Knight so much.
He's
Those
just a
kid
grumpy
Shadowhunters vibes so bad.
yeah, he's just a grumpy old goblin man. He's just grumpy and tired and sometimes turns into a giant goblin. It's just, you know.
It was so funny because he just got like sucked in. You use a grumpy old goblin that got sucked into fighting the literal incarnation of one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and he was like, "I guess this is what I'm doing now."
Nico says, "How do you feel about measuring distances?" You know what? I don't like it. I look, I just want to look at the board and I would like to count abstract distances. I like abstract distances. That's like Cypher with their like short distance, immediate distance, long distance.
Hmm.
I'm into it. I like it. But
Mhm.
I do like conveniently divided like increments of distance as well. So like, you know.
The appropriate tool for the situation at hand.
Mhm.
Uh, Also, Geek Outs asked me, "How do you feel about Scum and Villainy?" Um, I love John Harper's game design. I love Scum and Villainy. I know it's like Scum and Villainy is an iteration of Blades in the Dark by John Harper. So it's another designer who's like tinkered with some things. And I think that, like the spaceships are new to that. But like the character sheet is very similar to the way that works. And I love Scum and Villainy. It's very cool. It is the right. It shoots exactly down the middle of the right amount of crunchiness and flexibility. I think
Oh, I need to try it so bad
it's
because
really
I love Blades in
fun.
the Dark. So yeah.
I'm probably going to write a Blades in the Dark hack now, or like a system based on. I'll probably wind up writing a Forged in the Dark system in the next year or two.
I'm
Actually,
sorry.
Listen, when you need playtesters.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing. So karaoke night. hello, by the way, said I personally find it frustrating to have to stop the action to have to Google how to grab someone in 5e. So what I appreciate about Monster of the Week is it's like a yes but and we can be creative instead. And Jolly Old Up Next said the solution is to grapple us less. And that's incredible.
I'm also in that game. I agree. The solution to not having to look up grapple rules is just to grapple us less.
So, but here's so I definitely hear that, and that can absolutely get really frustrating. I also, for myself, the way that I handle that situation, sometimes I get, and I think I'm getting better about this, but sometimes I do get caught up in like, oh well, how does the rule actually work? And that's, I get really caught up in that, and then I get like start looking for something. But more often than not, I think I'm getting better at it. More often than not, what I'll do is just like, I don't remember how this works. So either somebody at my table will know how it works, and I ask the players, or and I just basically like I either punt or I say you know what, this is because of this situation and the way that this situation works. This is how it's going to work right now. Is that how it actually works? I don't know. It's how it works right now, and like I realize that's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution, because like not everybody's comfortable with that. In fact, I was one of those people who was not comfortable with that for a long time.
I have a definitive poll in
how
chat
grapple work is one of the answers no, because fuck. Good.
I had to put Thaco on there, but I think my favorite option is arm wrestle for it. I'm voting for that.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a pop quiz. I feel like I'm gonna get it wrong.
I did it. I voted.
Oh gosh. I pushed all the buttons on my desk at the same time and they all lit up and it freaked me out.
Okay. Sometimes after I turn my computer off, all of like the lights on my keyboard go off except for like the two little blue LEDs that are like on the outside of it. But if I bump into a key after, like, because sometimes I'll just like throw a t-shirt on it or something to cover the LEDs that stay on even when it's off but still plugged into the computer. And sometimes when I do that, it pushes one key enough to activate it, and the whole thing goes RGB for a second, even though the computer's off. It scares the shit out of me every time because my room is completely dark, and then it's just like rainbow flash. I'm like, oh god, I've been flashbanged by my own keyboard.
The way you said that made it sound like a Sailor Moon like move in combat.
Yeah, I have to do like a little dance, and then
I'm pretty sure
like
that's. I'm actually quite, as somebody who's never watched My Little Pony, I'm pretty sure that's one of the characters.
I think you're right.
Probably
no,
right.
I think it's not. I think I have it almost right. It's like not
it's Rainbow
quite.
Dash, I think.
There we go.
I think
That's
it's Rainbow. I think it's legit Rainbow Dash.
Yeah, I think it is. Anyway, what was I gonna say?
It is in fact. It is like the actually. I think it's like one of the iconic ones too. It's like the blue one with the rainbow tail.
Oh.
That one that we all know.
Yeah.
I think I had that one when I was like 3. You know what I mean?
With this cat lady coming out of the woodwork for the My Little Pony lore. Hello.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I was gonna say something about the mechanic stuff and brain, and like its brain is not working. It just
Fine.
Yeah, it's
neither's your camera. It's fine.
Just because the show's over, so.
It's probably true. It's probably my brain is like, the show is over now. Shut up. So, yeah, that's the end. That's the end of this episode. We're not ending like that. We're not gonna end it.
I think the point is what we value, like mechanics versus story, is like the theme of I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of tonight's discussion was just about what the different parts of play are that we particularly enjoy, and also I think just reinforcing the fact that TTRPGs are a big hobby, and games encompass. There are a lot of ways to engage in play when you're sitting down to play a tabletop role-playing game, and that can begin at reading the book, and it can be any part in that process, from like playing around with character ideas outside the game, like writing character monologues, putting playlists together for them. It can be like putting together, like figuring out the relationships between NPCs. It can be like crunching numbers and figuring out the most efficient way to get your build happening. It can be the actual act of rolling die. Like there's a lot of things that play looks like in this hobby. And it's always cool to talk about what people enjoy most, like what aspects people find most interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. This is the end of the stream, so we're gonna go. Thank you everybody for coming and hanging out with us tonight and talking about TTRPGs with us, and giving us your hot takes about. I don't know why I said it like that. Your hot takes about Rules Light versus Crunch. But yeah, it's been good. Allison, thanks for coming and hanging out with us and chatting with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Allison. I play tabletop games to be dramatic and feel like a badass.
There you go. All right. This is the part of the stream where I would say, Allison, you should tell people where to find you. But I don't know if there's anything that you want to specifically like talk about that you're doing, because I've lost track of the things that you're doing. So,
hi, I'm Allison. I am at Terrible on Twitter, and I'm not currently in any major projects because I'm focusing on like home games and just kind of having fun. But follow me on Twitter, and you'll see whenever I do things, because I like streaming sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are gonna go. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, hanging out tonight. Thank you for clipping that, Matt, as well as the other clips that you've made of the dumb things that I've said today on far too much caffeine and not enough sleep.
I love it. I'm here for it.
If you all want to support the stuff that's going on here, I mean, most of you that are here already know the places, but just in case you don't, we have a Patreon, which currently is the best way to support us. But if you don't want to go through Patreon, which is completely understandable, you can also support us right here on Twitch by subscribing. It's very helpful. You can also, if you're watching this on YouTube, a like and a comment is very, very helpful for us and visibility. And yeah, just, follow us all the places that people are followed. Does that work?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
You know what? It's
Social media is hard.
Social media hard, especially these days, man. Like, I don't know where anybody is these days. Like, we're technically still on Twitter, but like only barely. Like,
people keep telling me that I should own a mastodon, and I'm like, aren't those extinct?
I hear they're trying to clone one. That's not important. We're not going to talk about that.
I mean, I have time.
It's gonna come back. It works. It's gonna come back and be like, "Come on, man! I got out. I got off easy. I'm back here. Come on!
I got out, and y'all brought me back." Also, Nico says, "Thank you for tuning in to Lucas Becomes a 40K Player," and like, I cannot honestly say that it's not that. So, yep, that's it. All right, we're gonna go before this escalates further. Tune in next week for Lucas Builds Warhammer 40K Terrain. No, wait. For Ramblemancy. Next week, it'll be an in-house Ramblemancy. Just me, John, and Freeman hanging out, talking about anything and everything. And also nothing. So, come by, come hang out with us, and we'll see you then. But if not, we'll see you the next time you decide to come roll with us. Good night. And good zone, everybody.
Good zone."